Hello, 11 plus hopefuls and parents. Testing. Okay, I'll give people a few more seconds to arrive because I see there are 3 people here at the moment. I'm guessing one of them is me, one of them is my son, and one of them is someone who is not related to me, nor I myself. So hello to you. Right, okay, we have 4 people. I think that's good enough for me. Other people can join in, I hope, as the lesson progresses. So yes, welcome 11 plus hopefuls and parents, though I'm not sure I have enough critical mass at the moment to have both of those categories of people. Oh, we've got 6 people. So yeah, hello everyone. Glad to have you here for this Excel in English lesson, part 3. One thing that I've promised myself, having watched the last lesson on playback, is to reduce significantly the amount of times I say okay and so. I was rather alarmed at the amount of times I said those words, so I'm going to try and avoid saying them today. I should be wired up to some kind of
contraption that gives me an electrical shock every time I say those words, but I'm not. So today's lesson is on word classes. You might be thinking, word classes, they're rather basic. I know my word classes: nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions, determiners. Why are you doing a lesson on those? Well, I hope to be putting word classes into teaching them in a new way, in a way that ultimately will help you with your comprehension and possibly also with your creative writing. So we're going to do some conceptual work first, and don't be put off by that if you're here for practical stuff, because we will start conceptually and then we will bring things down to earth, as it were, and look at some practical stuff. Hello, Manur. Nice to see you in the lesson. I'm checking my chat as we go. I finally got the hang of observing the chat and presenting at the same time. Before the lesson begins properly, just a little bit about me. So my name's Jay. I'm a tutor at 11 Plus Prep School, which is an online small group tuition service, if you like. We also publish materials now as well, and we've just opened a shop recently where we sell stuff. So if you are interested in tuition, you can see our available courses there on the bottom right. So we have all subjects classes if you need tuition in all subject areas, and we also have subject-specific classes such as English graded depth or maths graded depth or reasoning graded depth, should you just need tuition in a particular area. The information is on our website, 11plusprepschool.co.uk, as is our brand new shop. And we can also be contacted via WhatsApp or the phone more traditionally on 07736 252 419. And I'd like to say a big thanks to the 11 Plus Journey, the platform on which you are watching this right now. You probably know this already, but I shall say this nonetheless, just in case you have followed me here from somewhere else and not via the 11 Plus Journey. So the 11 Plus Journey is a community of parents and educators involved in the overall development of children through academic excellence. You can visit their website, the11plusjourney.co.uk, for more resources. And this video lesson will also be available on the 11 Plus Journey YouTube channel shortly hereafter. And there are other great videos by a host of great tutors and other experts on the 11 Plus Journey YouTube channel. So check it out. We begin with a passage from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which I'm going to read to you. And then let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face. It was not in impenetrable shadow as the other objects in the yard were, but had a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. So there's your first passage. The second passage I'm going to read is from the Bible, particularly the Gospel of John, as follows. Then, when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping which came with her, he groaned in the spirit, and was troubled, and said, Where have ye laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. Then said the Jews, Behold, how he loved him. Have you noticed something about both of those passages? It's quite obvious because I've put that important thing in red. If you've got any idea what it is, tap it in the chat. There are 9 of you I can see, so don't be shy. There are 11 of you, so do not be shy. Any idea why I've highlighted those 2 bits? Two short sentences. Yes, I know who you are. 2 short sentences is kind of the right answer. Yeah, so I've got several people saying short sentences. So they are short sentences. In particular, they are 2-word sentences. Yes, someone has said they only have a subject and a verb. Someone said emotion on face. Interesting. 2-word sentences is the answer. We have 2 2-word sentences. And interestingly, one of those is a complete sentence and one of those is not. The one which is the complete sentence is Jesus wept. The one which is incomplete is Marley's face. Reason being, well, does anyone know why Jesus wept is a complete sentence and Marley's face is an incomplete sentence? I'll give you a few minutes in the chat to answer this. Someone did say a subject and a verb, which is kind of close, yeah. Subject and a verb. So Jesus wept is a noun and a verb. And Jesus is the subject of the sentence. So yes, that is the right answer. And Marley's face is a noun and a noun. In fact, Marley's face is an incomplete sentence that implies a complete sentence, because the full sentence should, of course, be it was Marley's face. But we don't have the verb in there. So Dickens has shortened that sentence for, shall we say, dramatic effect, which is fine and great. But it's not, strictly speaking, a complete sentence, and nor does it have to be. So why am I focusing? Why am I focusing on a 2-word sentence with a noun and a verb? Well, because we only need a noun and a verb to form a complete sentence. And we could say that a complete sentence equals a unit of meaning or a complete thought. So what does this have to do with comprehension? What does this have to do with how we comprehend? How might this help us to improve our comprehension, knowing that essentially a sentence has to have a noun and a verb? Well, what is a noun? What is a noun? As I say, this might seem basic to some of you at the moment, but I will push onwards onto more conceptual things in a minute. So I'm just checking the chat. What is a noun? Anyone tell me what a noun is? Yeah, a person, place, or thing. Thank you. A noun is a thing. I've gone for simplicity there. A noun is a thing. Because to me, people are things and places are things, or for the purpose of this lesson, they are things. So people and cellos and love and determination and chimneys and snails and jealousy are things. And some of these things can be perceived in the physical world. People, cellos, chimneys, and snails. And these are concrete nouns. And some of the things cannot be perceived in the physical world. Love, determination, jealousy, and similar things. And those things are abstract nouns. So here are some of the things I listed. We've got a cello, we've got a snail, we've got a chimney, and we've got people. All of those things you can perceive in the world. And I haven't got pictures of love or determination or jealousy or hatred or hope or faith or any of those things, because those things, they don't have any tangible form. They exist in some kind of abstract realm. I could represent love with a love heart, but we can only represent the abstract symbolically. And what is a verb? Someone tell me what a verb is. A few minutes in the live chat to... Yes, a doing word, such as strangling. Well, it's interesting that you should think of strangling. That's the first action you should think of. Okay. That amused me, so I'll allow myself that little okay that I just muttered. Yes, it's a doing word, a doing or being word. That's right, it's a doing or being word. And it's very important we include being, because that's very relevant to what I'm going to talk about. So a verb is an action or state. It's doing or being. So doing is an action and being is a state of existence. To punch, to jump, to sing, to have, to consider, to weld, to be, to fly, to know are verbs. Some of these verbs can be directly observed in the physical world. To punch, to jump, to sing, to weld. These are dynamic verbs. And some of these verbs can be inferred through, though we don't observe the action itself directly. To consider, to be, to know. These are stative verbs. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about stative verbs and how we can't observe them directly. We can only infer them. So if someone is thinking, you don't see the action of thinking. You see the manifestations of thinking. So someone might have a furrowed brow, for instance. They might be, I don't know, going through some mechanical process that they go through when they're thinking, maybe kind of rubbing their temples or whatever. You'll see the outward manifestation of that abstract stative process or existing. We may think that we look at other people or other things, trees, animals existing, but we're looking at manifestations of their existence. We don't see the existence itself. For example, I'm talking now, and you can infer through my agency, my speaking and my moving that I exist. But we don't really see the existence itself. So you can perhaps see where I'm going with this. We've talked about abstract nouns and concrete nouns, ones you can perceive, ones you can't perceive. And now we're talking about verbs, actions that you can see performed and those which you perhaps can only infer being performed. And there we see someone just about to throw a punch. You could see a punch being thrown. Someone welding, you could see welding being done. A little girl singing, you can see the song being sung, the singer singing. You can perceive, you can hear the singer singing, I should say. You can see people jumping, but you can't really see consideration. You can't see the process of considering. You can see the manifestations of that process. You can't see knowing, but you can see manifestations of someone knowing. So if we only need a noun and a verb to form a unit of meaning or a complete thought, what does this suggest about what we need to understand most essentially when we use language? What do you think? If we only need a noun and a verb to form a unit of meaning, when we understand language or units of our language, sentences, what are we most trying to do you think? Have a guess. Anyone? What is happening and to whom? I like it. I like it, yes. What is happening and to whom? There is the universe. So we're going into space now. There is the universe. Or at least a part of the universe, because the universe is everything. That's a philosophical point for consideration. But I could have equally represented the universe with a wardrobe or a dog basket or a country or a planet, but I've gone for this expanse of stars. And our universe is made up of 4 dimensions. Anyone know what those 4 dimensions are? Why is he talking about universe and its dimensions? Well, I'm going to tell you. So the 4 dimensions are height and width and depth. So these are our 3 spatial dimensions, and there's a 4th dimension, which is time. So that's what our universe is made up of, those 4 dimensions. Now there are some philosophical debates about whether there are more than 5 dimensions, and that's an interesting one. I was going to talk about Salvador Dali's hypercubes, but I won't go down that path right now. But yeah, let's just accept that there are 4 dimensions, 3 spatial ones and time. What does this have to do with nouns and verbs? Well, a noun is a thing, and a thing exists in 3-dimensional space. So we're talking about concrete nouns here. So a cello, for instance, will exist in 3-dimensional space, and it will exist in 3-dimensional space, and it has 3-dimensional space. It has a length, a breadth, a depth. A sheet of paper is 3-dimensional. You may think of it as being 2-dimensional, but it's actually 3-dimensional. And everything does something. So everything every noun does something. And when it does something, that something that it's doing is a verb. That is to say, a noun is a thing that exists in space, and a verb is how that thing moves through time. So I think that when we use language, when we write incomplete sentences, ultimately what we are trying to understand is how a thing that exists in space moves through time. That's what I think ultimately we're trying to do. So when we're reading a story, every sentence that we read, what we should first and foremost be establishing is what the noun is and what it's doing. So you imagine if you're watching a film is just a sequence of pictures and sounds where the thing is constantly doing something. And that kind of approximates what you're doing in your head when you're reading. You're trying to form a picture, a moving picture of what the noun is doing, or how an object is moving through space and time. Does that make sense so far? So we've got our physical universe, one we just out. And we have an abstract universe. So I've represented the physical universe with a field on a nice, clear, sunny day. As I say, I could have represented the universe with anything, a wardrobe or a dog basket or a country or a planet, anything, a spider, anything. But I've chosen to represent it with this field. And the abstract universe, I just represented with a white background because it's the abstract universe and we don't know how to represent it. And the interesting thing is about my thinking about this subject. So I've always wanted to teach this, and I've thought about it for a long time. I've kind of convinced myself of this abstract layer of reality, which we interact with, but we don't fully understand. Anyway, so we've got our physical universe, and let's pop a dog in there. Either that's a huge dog or it's a tiny field, but we've got a dog. The dog is our thing, it's our noun. So we've got our thing in physical space, the dog, the concrete noun. And he goes woof. And that's how the thing moves through time. It barks, and barking is a dynamic verb. So any action has time. An action can't be performed without time. And it doesn't need to be a dog barking, of course. It could be I'm presenting. So as I'm presenting, to be able to present this lesson, we need to be able to move through time. If you're playing football, of course, you're playing, the verb needs to move through time. So it happens over a period of time. It's executed over a period of time. So that's clear, I think. In our abstract universe, we have love, let's say. And I've got to represent that symbolically with a heart. We all understand what the heart means, even though it's just an organ that pumps blood around your body. We still use it as the symbol for the seat of, say, arduous feelings or romantic feelings, or the seat of our charisma, whatever it may be. So the thing in abstract space is love, and it's an abstract noun. Oh, what's happened there? We've got a plaster, a couple of plasters. Love hurts. It does sometimes. How the thing moves through time, it hurts, and hurts is a stative verb. So notice here, we can't perceive love. And we can't think in the same way of hurting moving through time. And it must move through time in some sense, but we don't fully understand how. So let's compare that with our dog woofing. When a dog woofs, we can perceive that moving through time, that woof. It will last maybe a second or so. Or if someone's playing a football match, we can expect that action or those series of actions, the playing of the football match, to last around 90 minutes. So we can conceptualize the time frame in which that verb, that action occurs. Now, when we talk about love hurting, for instance, we can't really understand the noun, and we can't really measure the time over which the hurting occurs either. It's a very vague and woolly thing, and very strange. So this abstract realm seems to behave in a less predictable way, or a less comprehensible way than the physical realm. And that's interesting, I think. Yes, love isn't literally hurt, it's a feeling or a symbol. That's why it's called an abstract universe, yes. So with concrete nouns and dynamic verbs, space and time are perceptible and measurable within the limits of human understanding. But with abstract nouns and stative verbs, space and time are not perceptible or measurable in any obvious way. And I'll talk more about this later and make it clear what practical application this has. But first, I just want to say that the physical and abstract universes are not exclusive. They don't exclude each other and function independently. They can do throughout. And part of the question is when something abstract or stative is happening. So let's just say jealousy. You can question, where is jealousy? Is it inside me? Is it outside me? Is it an interaction of what's inside me and outside me? Because you can reduce it to some kind of basic physiological level, if you like, chemical reactions or whatever that's happening inside you. So it's quite interesting to think about where these abstractions exist. Do they exist, psychologically? Do they exist physically? Do they exist spiritually? Have a think about that, because thinking about abstract things does make you more brainy, and that's what we want. Anyway, not to go too far down that road, let's bring our dog back. We've got a thing in physical space, our dog, our concrete noun. And our dog can love. Yes, he does. Reminds me of the Cat Stevens song, actually. I love my dog as much as he loves me. So love is a stated verb. You can love another physical thing, as we do. And this dog loves his bone. So the bone is a thing in physical space. So it's like the dog, the physical thing, acts in the abstract realm to love, and that love in the abstract realm is applied to another physical thing, the bone. So I just want to say that, just in case you think, oh, James is saying that physical things only happen in the physical universe and abstract things in the abstract universe, and never twain shall meet. That's not the case at all. So bear that in. So if you agree with me, and this is just my understanding of things, just my understanding of what we as human beings with a complex language are seeking to understand, if you agree with me about that, then we want to understand how a thing that exists in space, the noun, moves through time, the verb. You can disagree with me. I may not be right about this. But we have the dog barks, we have Sarah runs, we have Bob vomited, we have Amina sleeps. We have the dog loves the bone. Yes, someone says it's not just for love, but can be any feeling such as hate, Also, the feeling can be given to something else. For example, the lion hated the tiger. Yes, that's absolutely right. So I don't mean to say that love is the only abstract thing. There's love, hate, jealousy, determination, faith, hope, charity, and many, many, many more besides. And I was going to do loads of slides on all the different kinds there are just to reinforce the point. But time being what it is, I decided to stick to one. But yeah, don't kind of get hung up on love. Yeah, anyway, Sarah hated John. Bob pierced his ears. Amina asked her mother. So we've got two groups of sentences, and both refer to a particular type of verb. Does anyone know? You might not have learned this for the 11 plus. I've never seen this come up in the 11 plus, so I'm kind of maybe teaching you above what you need to know here, but it's good to know anyway, because this all ties into what I'm teaching you. We've got a group of sentences that use intransitive verbs, and we have a group of sentences that use transitive verbs. Yes. Love of one's teddy bear. Absolutely. Love of one's teddy bear. So an intransitive verb is they're verbs that make sense without an object. So someone at the beginning of this lesson talked about the sentences or the Jesus wept sentence being about the subject and the verb, which actually was true. So Sarah, for example, Sarah runs. Sarah is the noun. That is the subject of the sentence. And she runs, which is the verb. The sentence has no object because in this context, runs is an intransitive verb. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about here, sometimes you can perform an action and that action is sufficient in and of itself. And sometimes you perform an action and that action has to be done to something. The thing that you're doing the action to is the object of the sentence. So if we say, Daniel gave the present to Sarah, then Sarah is the object of the sentence, Daniel is the subject of the sentence, because Daniel is doing the doing and Sarah is doing the receiving, or receiving the action. So we have our transitive verbs as well in the sentences. The dog loves the bone, Sarah hates John, Bob pierced his ears, so Bob is doing the action to his ears. Amina asked her mother, Amina is doing the action to her mother. Why do I bring up transitive and intransitive verbs? Because it's not strictly true that we only need one noun and a verb all the time. So Jesus wept is a full sentence, but sometimes the single noun alone won't be enough to give us a full sentence. Sometimes we'll need another noun which functions as the object of the sentence. So a complete thought, and therefore a complete sentence, is either how a thing moves through time or how a thing moves through time to affect another thing. Amina hates broccoli. Yes, that's a good one. So maybe there is someone out there who really does hate broccoli, and that's why they've suggested that one. So that's nouns and verbs that I've taught you about. But what about other word classes? Well, I think there are 4 very important word classes. If you agree with what I'm saying, there's 4 very important word classes, and they're not the ones that you think. So usually we get taught nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. These are the most important ones. And there are some other word classes too. I don't think that. I think that most important word classes are nouns and verbs for reasons I've demonstrated, and conjunctions and prepositions, because it's the conjunctions and prepositions which also help us understand, shall we say, space-time events, how a noun how a thing moves through time, how a noun performs a verb. I think prepositions, seen in that context, prepositions and conjunctions are far more important than they're given credit for. And I would relegate in importance adverbs and adjectives and determiners and pronouns as well. Though they're important, I'm not saying disregard them at all. But I'm saying if you want to understand fundamentally what we are trying to do when we say read a sentence in a story, they're the things that you need: the noun and the verb, the preposition, and the conjunction. And I'll tell you why. In our universe, somewhere, we have a cat in a box. So in the part of the universe called the box, we have a cat. The cat is in the box. This is our preposition. A preposition is a word that tells you the location of, direction of, or relationships between things in space and time. Yes, a modal verb is a type of verb. Someone said I've frozen. I hope it's you rather than me. Or if I have frozen, I hope I have unfrozen. But yes, a modal verb is a type of verb. Someone says that's correct. So a modal verb is a helper verb. So you get a modal verb alongside another verb. So we could go to the shops tomorrow. So could helps the verb go. I didn't talk about modal verbs. I'll save that for another time. So yeah, a preposition is a word that tells you the location of, direction of, or relationships between things in space and time. And I love prepositions. They're my favorite type of word class. I love them. I love them because they get abused so often by everyone, including I misuse prepositions myself, and I kick myself when I do, but I think they're incredibly important because they tell us, they locate us in space and time, or they show us the directions of things in space and time, or they show the relationships between in space and time. So here they're saying that we've got the cat, we've got the box somewhere in the universe, and actually the cat is in the box in the universe. We could say the cat is on top of the box, and that relocates the cat somewhere in the universe. It's on top of the box now. We'd say the cat is beside the box. Now the cat's relocated in the universe. It's beside the box. The cat's under the box. Hopefully it's not a heavy box because it'll be a squash cat. But yes, prepositions. Or we can say, Bob walked with Amina through the forest. So we've got some other prepositional information that shows us the relationship between two nouns, or indeed two or more nouns in the universe. So I think prepositions are really important. Let's have a look at another one here. Yay! More love. They were in love. They were in love. So I include this. I believe I've got one example of every word class, but I've got two of prepositions because I love prepositions so much. But I just want to show you how much the meaning of something changes when it's concerning the abstract realm. So they were in love. Love here is an abstract noun. Well, I've never seen that before. I'm just looking at my phone, looking at the chat. I just saw a emoji float up my screen there with a smiley emoji. So I don't know if someone's confessing to inhaling helium or something like that. But anyway, yes, they were in love. Well, where is love? Love is in the abstract realm, but they're in it. Is that somewhere inside one of them? Is it somewhere inside both of them? Is it like a shared space inside two people? Does that mean these two people are united in some kind of abstract way that we don't fully understand? Is that love outside of them? Where is that love that they are in? I do think this is more than just a kind of peculiarity of language. I do think it's significant that there is this abstract space, and we can question how we're involved with that abstract space and where it is. I think it's a fascinating thing to think about. But yes, the preposition in completely changes when you're talking about concrete things or when you're talking about abstract things. So we can clearly understand the cat is in the box, no problem. They're in love. How do you understand that? That's complex. And the next thing I want to talk about is the conjunction. The conjunction is something that I find incredibly important to comprehending space-time events, nouns doing things, things doing things, nouns doing verbs. If you see what I mean, I think conjunctions are incredibly important. So she goes to ballet and swimming on Saturdays. So a conjunction allows us to express more than one space-time event in a sentence. That's what I think a conjunction is. So I do like it when the conjunction is a small word, or a small word with no further explanation than that. But this is my further explanation. A conjunction allows us to express more than one space-time event in a sentence. So we've got a noun doing a verb, and a conjunction allows us, in a single sentence, to understand what another noun and verb are doing, and maybe another noun and verb are doing. And isn't the only conjunction, of course. There's but, nor, or, I'm on the spot now, I can't think of them, fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet. I think someone correct me if I'm wrong, and there are other conjunctions still. But for me, a conjunction is kind of like a Boolean operator that allows you to, express more than one space-time event in a sentence. And I hope you are with me when I say space-time event. I just mean when a noun acts it through space and time. So let's move on to what I consider to be the less important stuff, certainly less important to the understanding I'm striving for. So they were deeply in love. That's an adverb. So let's bring our young couple back again. There they are. They were deeply in love. So deeply here is an adverb, and it tells you a quality of a verb or an adjective or another verb. So most of the time you think of an adverb modifying a verb, which is true, it does, but an adverb can also modify an adjective or another adverb. But here we have the adverb modifying the verb were. They existed deeply in love. So that's highly abstract again. Were is a being verb. It's a stative verb. So again, what is being? Where does being exist? How is being done? And if they're being something deeply, well, what does that mean? How you can't measure deeply. So if you said something like he swam deeply, you would have some kind of understanding of the depth that he was swimming at. Or he ran quickly, you would have some kind of understanding of the speed that he was running at. But they were deeply in love. How do you measure that? I've heard parents kind of arguing with each other in a jokey way, saying, well, I'm the mother, so I must love the kids more deeply than you do. And when I hear that, I think, well, how do you know? How do you measure that depth? Because that you don't even know where that depth exists. So how can you go there with your ruler and measure it? Anyway, that's adverb. Yes, you can't actually be deep in love because love is abstract. I'm reading messages here, or maybe you can, but humans can't comprehend it. Good point. They were talking loudly. That's a good example. Yeah. So if they were talking loudly, and for those of you watching on playback, if suddenly I say something seemingly spontaneous, it's because I'm checking the messages as they're coming through. They were talking loudly is a good example. So that's physical. You can hear someone talking in the physical world, and you can gauge the loudness of it. You can have some kind of understanding of the extent of the volume that they are speaking loudly at. And someone's helped me out with a few more conjunctions: yet, but, and, although, as. Thank you. The purple flower flourished. I hope you like my artwork, by the way. I didn't think I had it in me, but I quite like that flower. The purple flower flourished. And the etymologists among you, that's etymologists, not entomologists, experts in the origins of words, not in the study of insects, will be able to tell me that flower and flourished are etymologically the same word. Anyway, the purple flower flourished. Purple is an adjective, and an adjective is a property of a noun. It tells you more about a noun. We know the noun flower is purple, and the noun is a thing that exists in space and time. So this flower that is flourishing in space and time is purple. So we have another adjective example. He showed great determination, and I struggle to represent this. Check the time. Oh, gosh, I've gone on, haven't I? I've got a lot of the lesson to get through yet. I'm going to hurry up a bit. So he showed great determination. This is abstract again. Determination is abstract. So how do you show great determination? How do you show great? How do you even measure it? I had a struggle to represent this graphically. I've kind of got this Sisyphean figure rolling this boulder up the hill to represent determination. So an adjective is a property of a thing that exists in space and time. So determination, which exists in abstract space and time, I should say, in ways we don't fully understand. So how do we know that determination is great, or what does it mean to have great determination in any measurable way? It's very hard to understand. And let's go back to our cat. Once more, the cat is in the box. This time we're highlighting the word the. It's a determiner. A determiner describes a noun. I'm just mentioning this because I feel obliged to mention everything, though this doesn't really suit my purposes. And determiners can have a more kind of rich definition than this, but I think this suffices for the time being. So, or we can say a determiner introduces a noun. So the cat is in the box. So the just introduces cat and box. Or you can have a and an. So those articles are also determiners. Numbers can be determiners as well. So 6 men sat on the bench. So the number 6 introduces the noun men. So that's a determiner. So I just see that as a kind of functional word, and it doesn't really interest me that greatly. But for the sake of completion, I mentioned it. And we have our young couple back again. They were in love. This time, the pronoun. A pronoun replaces a noun or nouns. So it's just a word we substitute for a noun. And that's kind of a mechanical thing, because if we take Oliver Twist, for example, we say Oliver Twist reached the stile. Oliver gained the high road. Oliver sat down by a milestone. And if you keep repeating Oliver all the time, it just becomes awkward to hear for some strange reason. So it's more comfortable to replace the noun with a pronoun. So I would say that a pronoun is slightly more interesting than maybe a determiner is, because a pronoun is highly symbolic, and it's a symbol of a symbol. So a noun is a symbol of something. So your name is a symbol of you, and the pronoun is a symbol of that symbol of you. So it's interesting in that sense. And it's also important to keep in mind that when you're reading a text for comprehension purposes, when you come across a pronoun, you must remind yourself what noun that pronoun refers to. Otherwise, it will affect your comprehension of whatever you're trying to comprehend. So make a rule for yourself. I will consciously recognize what noun this pronoun is referring to. So what practical application does this have to comprehension? Now, many of you might be really, really good readers and you don't need this advice, or maybe you don't need it practically, but you still find it interesting conceptually. Or maybe you're not a good reader, or you're not the finished article yet, and that's fine. Maybe this will help you in some way. So treat nouns, verbs, prepositions, and conjunctions as the most important word classes. I'm not saying ignore adjectives and adverbs, because you might be asked to define them in your comprehension test or in your vocabulary test. So don't ignore them and don't fail to learn them. They are important, but for the purpose of comprehending things in the way I think things need to be comprehended, let's focus on nouns, verbs, prepositions, and conjunctions. So here we have Oliver Twist. And I'm going to try and apply what I've just said now. And this is the bit I've been dreading. So Oliver reached the stile at which the bypath terminated and once more gained the high road. Let's understand how the noun travels through time. Let's understand the space-time event here. So our noun Oliver reached, that's the verb, the stile. And then we've got, and once more gained the high road. So let's split that into two sentences, because remember I said that the conjunction simply allows us to acknowledge, if you like, more than one space-time event in a sentence. Now, if we're having trouble understanding longer sentences, well, let's just get rid of the and or the conjunction and break the conjoined bits into individual sentences. So now we have Oliver reached the stile at which the bypath terminated, which I think is probably a little bit easier to understand. So our noun Oliver reached the stile. So we know how Oliver is moving through time. He's reached the stile, and the stile is another object. Whenever I've done this with children in my class, no one's ever known what a stile is. A stile, for those of you with more bucolic interests might know, but in the countryside, if you want to get from one field to another, and the fields are separated by hedgerows or fences, you will need to use a stile to cross over to the other side of the field. And it's like a wooden step over platform. So Oliver reached the stile at which the bypath terminated. So we've got prepositional information there about the location of the bypath, which the bypath ends at the stile. Okay, and Oliver has reached that stile. So we split this long sentence into two. So now the next space-time event that we need to understand is Oliver once more gained the high road. Or to simplify that, Oliver reached the high road. And then we've got, it was 8 o'clock now. What does that mean? This is abstract. It means 8 o'clock existed at this point. Though he was nearly 5 miles away from the town, he ran and hid behind the hedges by turns till noon, fearing that he might be pursued and overtaken. So this is quite a long sentence. Again, we can simplify it by breaking it down into space-time events. So he, we've got our pronoun, so he refers to the noun Oliver. Oliver was 5 miles away from town. Oliver existed. At this point in time, Oliver existed at a distance of 5 miles away from the town. And we can even end the sentence there and begin a new one. He ran. Oliver ran. So next space-time event is Oliver runs and hid behind the hedges. So we've got a conjunction there. Well, let's split that off into its own sentence. Oliver hid behind hedges. So this is the next space-time event. Oliver is hiding behind hedges. And then we've got by turns, which by turns is just a adverbial phrase, I think. So we can even ignore by turns. I mean, don't ignore it, because all the words are here because they're important and contribute to our understanding. But if we want to reduce everything to a space-time event, then we just say Oliver hid behind hedges until noon. So we've got a preposition until there, so we know we've got some kind of understanding of some deeper understanding of how this is happening in time. So Oliver did this until noon, fearing that he might be pursued and overtaken. So after the colon, we can even break that into a separate sentence, because that colon there after noon is kind of functioning as an introduction to an explanation. It's kind of saying, and this is the reason why. It's because Oliver was fearing that he might be pursued and overtaken. So let's split that off into its own sentence. Oliver feared that he might be pursued and overtaken. So Oliver feared. Oliver was in fear. And then we can further break this down to Oliver thought he might be pursued. And Oliver thought he might be overtaken. And then we have the next sentence. Then he sat down to rest by the side of the milestone and began to think. Well, we've got the conjunction and there. So let's just split that off and concentrate on then he sat down to rest by the side of the milestone. So he, our pronoun, Oliver. Oliver sat down. That's the space-time event. We could even consider that to be a full sentence. He sat down. And then a new sentence. Oliver rested by the side of the milestone. So we have some information here about this space-time event. Oliver is sitting down around the milestone, but it's to the side of the milestone. So that preposition has located us at the side of the milestone. He's not on the milestone, he's at the side of it. So we got some precise information about the location of this space-time event. Oliver began to think. We can kind of gloss over for the first time. It's important, but for our purposes, we can gloss over that, of where he had better go and try and live. So rather unpoetically, we can condense that into Oliver thought about where to live. I'll just do one more paragraph because I've got 2 pages of this and I won't have time to go through it, but you get the gist of what I'm doing, I hope. Now we have the stone by which he was seated, bore in large characters an intimation that it was just 70 miles from that spot to London. So the subject of our sentence now is the stone. So the stone, what's the verb? Bore an intimation that it was 70 miles from London. So the stone, bore, carried. So a noun and our verb. We need to know what it's carrying. It carried the information that it was just 70 miles from there to London. And that's all it's saying. And then we've got the name. By the name, it means London. So London, the word London, awakened. So there's our noun, London, and there's our verb, awakened. And we need to know what it awakened. So it says a new train of ideas in the boy's mind. Well, the boy's Oliver. So London caused new ideas to pop into Oliver's head. That's all it's saying. And we can keep on doing this. We can keep on going through this story, which can be quite challenging because it was written in Victorian times and the sentences are longer in Victorian times than typically they are today. And that's why I chose it. But you needn't struggle with it. I think if you think about it simply in terms of what is the noun doing or what is the noun doing to another noun, then it becomes much easier to represent that mentally and to maintain a mental movie in your head and to see what you're reading as a story. So I just want to move on from this in the last couple of minutes because I did promise to, in the announcement for this, mention show, don't tell. So I should fulfill that obligation just in case you're here for show, don't tell. So how does this help with creative writing, what I've just said? Well, I want to go back to abstractions and the abstract realm. So the pie was nice, which some of my students will be familiar with already. The pie was nice. You've seen this before. Was is an abstract verb. The pie in its existence was nice. So what does that even mean? I mean, we've kind of summarized this niceness of the pie. We've got 4 words there. The pie was nice. And if we're doing creative writing, that's not going to be a very impressive sentence. So when you're doing creative writing and you use a stative verb, always ask, can I use dynamic verbs instead? And would those dynamic verbs do something better for my writing? So let's just expand this. Instead of saying the pie was nice, we can say the smell of the pie wafted around the kitchen. So that's not quite saying the pie was nice yet, but we've rewritten that, so we've got some more dynamic stuff going on. So we've got the smell wafting, and I've put a question mark over smell because maybe smell isn't the most precise word, because smell can mean anything. It can be the smell of something lovely, like an apple and cinnamon pie, or it could be the smell of a sewer. So it's not the most helpful word. So we could say the aroma of the pie. That's a more ameliorative word. The aroma of the pie wafted around the kitchen. So now we're getting towards the niceness of the pie a bit more with these dynamic verbs. We could be a bit more precise as well. We can say the aroma of cinnamon and nutmeg rose from the pie and wafted around the kitchen. So we're really getting towards the niceness now, don't you think, with aroma, wafting. We've got these verbs and these more precise nouns. And more precise nouns and more precise verbs do wonders for your writing. And we still got that pesky pie there. Can we be more precise? Yeah. The aroma of cinnamon and nutmeg rose from the golden crusted pie and wafted round the kitchen. So we've got 2 good verbs there. Now we've got rose. So we can see the aroma rising, maybe clouds of steam carrying the notes of nutmeg and cinnamon from the golden crusted. Oh, nice adjective there. Golden crusted pie, compound adjective, and wafted round the kitchen. Let's make that a bit better. Light from the setting sun sparkled in the crystals of sugar scattered over the pie crust. So look at these nouns now. We've got rose, we've got wafted, we've got sparkled, we've got scattered. And all these dynamic verbs are really bringing to life the niceness of this pie. So much better than the pie was nice. Oh, someone says Schrodinger's cat. The cat in the box. Yes. Yeah, the cat in the box paradox. I didn't think of that actually, but yeah, it does bring it to mind now you mention it. You can't measure the niceness of a pie, and nice isn't a really good word to use. Yeah, that's right. Nice is a kind of iffy word as well. In fact, the interesting thing about the word nice is etymologically it means stupid. So nice comes from the Latin word nescient, ne meaning not, and scient, where we get our word science, meaning knowledge. So if you're nice, etymologically speaking, you are not knowledgeable or a bit stupid. The word changed meaning, I think, in the early 20th century. Oh, wow, that wasn't meant to happen. The word changed meaning in the early 20th century, I think, where it came to mean, oh, that's pleasant. But either way, it's not a good word to use. The aroma of the cinnamon nutmeg pie rose from the golden crusted pie and wafted around the kitchen. Light from the setting sun sparkled in the crystals of sugar scattered over the pie crust as my mother cut through the pie. Its pastry softly cracked. So we've got more rich language, which really convey the niceness of a pie so much more than the pie was nice. Warm steam billowed out, eventually clearing to reveal chunks of apple speckled orange and yellow by cinnamon and nutmeg. So let's look at our verbs now. Rose, wafted, sparkled, scattered, cut, cracked, billowed, clearing, reveal, speckled, Yeah, that's it. But more verbs, doing more work, really enlivening this pie in your imagination, I would hope. And I slid, there's our next verb, I slid my fork into the pie and ate. The soft, flaky pastry melted on my tongue, and I bit into the sweet, tangy apples. So I think that is the entire extract. So I've gone from the pie was nice, and I thought, well, I want to expand this. I want to convey the niceness of the pie some other how. And I've done that by using dynamic verbs, and I've done that by using more precise nouns. So I've taken it out of the abstract realm, and I've brought it more into the physical realm so that we can appreciate the pie more. So when you're doing your creative writing, do bear this in mind. When you write a stative verb, John was sad, ask yourself, are there dynamic verbs that you can use that convey the sadness in a more dramatic way? And here is the benefit. This is a gift that keeps giving. Because if you wrote the pie was nice, the mark that you get in your creative writing exam probably wouldn't be that good. If you wrote what I wrote here or something similar, your mark would be good because you'd be displaying more competent writing abilities. Now, I said the gift that keeps giving. If you've noticed, the pie was nice was 4 words. We've expanded it to this, which is, I think, probably, random guess here, about 50 words. So you've gone from writing 4 words to 50 words. If you were just telling, so when you write stative verbs, that's a form of telling. You might have heard of showing and telling. And you get told by your creative writing teacher to show rather than to tell, to show more often than you tell. So showing is using dynamic verbs and telling is using stative verbs. That's one way of distinguishing showing from telling. If you tell, your writing might not sound as good than if you show. Also, if you tell, you've got to write a whole lot more because the pie was nice. That's 4 words. You've got to write a page. So how are you going to fill up the rest of that page? If you write this, you fill up half a page already with good writing. So you just need to write another half a page. So you just need to find something else to write about or to continue this for another half a page, and you've done your job. So showing rather than telling, using dynamic verbs rather than stative verbs will probably get you to cover more ground in less time, which will make your life a whole lot easier in your exam. So I fulfilled my promise to talk about showing and telling in this lesson, but mainly it was about comprehension, and mainly it was about what we really need to understand is space-time events. That's what we do. Where are you going? I want to understand where you are going. Who ate all the cornflakes? We want to understand an event in space and time. Who ate all the cornflakes? So most of the things we want to know are space-time events. So that's why I did this lesson. And I hope it has some practical application. So let's just round this up with a reminder that I am James from 11 Plus Prep School, and we provide online small group tuition. And as I said at the top of the show, we also have a shop now where we sell stuff. So if you're inclined to get tuition or to buy some stuff, then do visit our website, 11plusprepschool.co.uk, or give us a call or WhatsApp us on 07736252419. In the bottom right, you can see the available courses that we run at the moment, but they're going to disappear with the next click. So if you need a reminder, give me a call and we can talk about what courses we run. Just to say thank you to the 11 Plus Journey for hosting this, and to remind you that the 11 Plus Journey is a community of parents and educators involved in the overall development of children through academic excellence. And you can visit their website, the11plusjourney.co.uk, for more resources. This video lesson will also be available on the 11 Plus Journey YouTube channel shortly hereafter. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you have found some of that useful to some small degree at least, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye.